Hi, it's Jan Beta. I'm going to do some upgrades on the Commodore 64 that I built in 2020, I think, towards the end of 2020. And as you probably know if you watched that video, the plan is to replace as many of the original custom chips with modern replacements as possible. And I actually have some new replacements, and also I have some proper keyboard standoffs now. I actually found them. So that's the plan for today. Some updates, upgrades on the self-made Commodore 64. So here's the current state of the project. The C64 has as many replacement parts as I could find, modern replacement parts as I had and as people sent me and as I bought. As you can see, it uses one of the newly available cases. I believe these are still available. It uses one of the Sixtyclone replica boards, and quite a few of the custom chips in here have been replaced with modern equivalents. There are many projects working on replacements for the original custom chips because they basically die because they are old. And if we are honest, they were never really that well made. So it's kind of magic that these machines work at all these days after like 40 years. This C64 came out in 1982 and many of the components are from the 80s, obviously. Yeah, my mission is to have a Commodore 64 from all new parts basically in the end of this project, and it's going to go on for a bit because not all the custom chips have replacements. Some of them are being worked on still. I have some new stuff that I want to put in here today. Yeah, so let's open this up and I'm going to show you what I have in here. If you haven't watched the build video of this, I recommend watching that because that shows me actually soldering the whole board, and if you plan on doing something like that yourself, it's a good video, I think. People told me so, to start and to see how it's done. So yeah, let's open this up and have a look. So I haven't even put the screws in yet because these cases clip together quite nicely. These are the original screws that came with the translucent clear case here. I am going to try to open this without breaking the case, which isn't that easy actually, and it sounds horrible, but there we are. So yeah, as you can see, there's still quite a few custom chips in here, most of which are ROMs actually. So here's where we're at. These 6526 CIA chips, still there is a group of people working on a replacement for those. But I'm not sure, the project hasn't been updated, at least the website of the project hasn't been updated since 2020, so I'm not sure what that's all about. It was in beta testing stage and actually I think it was pretty much finished. They just were implementing more CIA models into their project, basically an FPGA replacement for the 6526. Same with the 6510, there is a project replacing the 6510 and various other 6502 derivatives. And I think that's pretty much finished. It's also in beta testing. It's not available yet as far as I know. But we're going to see a replacement for this chip that is openly available, hopefully. These are the ROMs, the basic ROM, the kernel ROM and the character ROM. These are easily replaceable with EPROMs actually, and actually I have plans for these. I replaced the original SID chip with an ARMSID, which is amazing. Still, I really love this chip. It's a really good replacement for the original SID chip. We have a PLAnkton for the PLA replacement, and we have an original VIC-II chip. The plan for today is to replace the PLAnkton and get rid of these Lego bricks that I used to prop up the keyboard at the right angle. I actually found the keyboard standoffs that I had all along, but I didn't find them when I built this. So we are going to put these in. I am going to put the newly available VIC-II Kawari instead of the VIC-II chip in here. Unfortunately, the VIC-II Kawari project, I was one of the beta testers and I did a video about beta testing the Kawari project, which is the replacement for the VIC-II graphics chip that also comes with a number of great features, including HDMI out, native HDMI out on the Commodore 64, which is amazing. Unfortunately, the project came to a halt at current because there is a global shortage of chips, especially FPGAs, which the replacement Kawari is based on. So we're not going to see a version of the Kawari that is available to buy anytime soon, probably. Randy, who makes this, wrote an email to all the beta testers, and he plans to eventually make a cut down version of this Kawari board that is just a replacement for the VIC-II chip, which would be amazing still. But the Kawari board had HDMI out, as I said, and VGA out, and RGB out, and everything you could imagine, and also extra graphics modes. I recommend you watch the video I did on that, where I tested some of the stuff. Fortunately, I still have my beta unit, so I am going to put that in here for now. I am going to replace this timing chip. I did replace it last time I worked on this with the replacement from Jeff Bird that is openly available and also sold on his website. Unfortunately, I had some glitches with that, so there were some timing issues in certain games and stuff. Most of the things I tried worked fine, but in Giana Sisters, for example, we didn't have sprite collision and things like that, and we had some graphics glitches. So I think the replacement chip that Jeff made is pretty marginal, so I'm going to try to put another one in here today, which hopefully maybe is going to work better. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs. They offer excellent quality and even better service. If you want your own circuit board designs manufactured, check out the links in the video description. PCBWay has really reasonable prices for production runs, which is especially interesting for prototyping stuff and for hobbyists. Back to the C64. First of all, I want to take the whole board out because I want to put the keyboard standoffs in. And this left one is actually mounted under the board. There we go. Yeah, so with these clear cases, you obviously see every bit of dust. So I'm just going to clean some of that out with some compressed air. And this should sit somewhere like here, I think. So it sits really flush with the case here. And the other one goes on top of the board. Yeah, that should do. By the way, these standoffs are 3D printed models. Yeah, this fits here. Should be able to put the screw in there still. So now the keyboard should sit on these. And it does. It's nice. Okay, now I can get rid of the Lego bricks I stole from the kit. Yeah, and these can be screwed onto the keyboard. I'm not going to do that now because I have to replace some chips and I have to remove the keyboard again. But yeah, these standoffs are 3D printed parts. You can get the files for these on Thingiverse, I believe, and have your own made or make your own if you have a 3D printer, which I don't. So these were donated by Daniel, aka C64 Customs, who also has a YouTube channel, nudge nudge. So that was a cosmetic and stability kind of thing. let's move on to some other things that I want to do. As for replacing the RAM with a modern component, I got this SaRuMan RAM replacement from Slepion, which is an SRAM. There's a modern SRAM chip on there, and that replaces these two DRAM chips, the 41464 chips that are on this board revision, which is a 250466 board. This works also for the short board revisions, which also have the same RAM chip configuration. And there are some workarounds I'm going to link in the description that enable you to use this on the 8 RAM chip versions as well. So it works for all the Commodore 64 revisions, even on the SX64 you can use this replacement. It has a couple of quirks. This prevents the so-called VSP bug from happening, which is happening in some games. Some games use very marginal timings to make smooth scrolling possible, and on some C64s that crashes the program because the DRAM timings in the C64 are very marginal by design, basically. So some C64s can't play all games, and this prevents that from happening because it uses static RAM instead of the dynamic RAM. So this should be pretty much plug and play. I should just be able to remove these. And on some other board revisions you have to do some extra wiring. But this should be very straightforward. And thanks to Slepion for sending this. This should just fit in here nicely and plug in. So we have our old DRAM replaced with a modern chip that should last a lot longer and also gets rid of that VSP timing bug. That's the RAM replacement. I'm going to link everything in the video description so you can read up on how this thing actually works. So I'm going to test this with the new RAM chip. Everything else is unchanged. So let's see if this still boots. There we go. That looks good. We still see the correct number of basic bytes free there. Yeah, more replacements. Slepion was also kind enough to send me the new version of the PLAnkton, which is, in my opinion, the best replacement for the original PLA chips available. I have the old version of the PLAnkton already in here, but there's a new version that fixes some minor bugs. I didn't run into any issues with this at all, but there's an even better version of the PLAnkton now, and we are going to use this, obviously, because I have it. So out with the old PLAnkton and in with the new. And this should be very much plug and play. Let's see if it still works. Should technically still work. Which it does. Yay! And the final thing that Slepion sent me is the TOLB, which is a replacement for this MOS 8701 timing chip. I had a replacement in there that was made by Jeff Bird, but as I said previously, it gave me some minor timing issues. So this one hopefully works a bit better. I'm not sure about that, but we are going to put this in here. Should just be plug and play, and we should still be able to start our C64. It's a bit boring, everything just works, I guess. Let's see if this one does as well. Yep, this does work as well. So more replacement chips, yay. So the final chip I want to replace today is the VIC-II. The VIC-II is famously the graphics chip. And there's a replacement available now that I didn't have when I first started working on this C64. That wasn't available. But now we have the VIC-II Kawari. And this actually doesn't fit in here with the TOLB in place. So we are going to put another socket in between there to slightly raise this up. I made a whole video about the Kawari previously, and it's just amazing. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is not going to be easily available in the future. If you want, you can check out the video. I'm not going to go into much detail about the features that this has, just that it replaces the original VIC-II chip, like a one-to-one drop-in replacement using an FPGA chip, and it also outputs a HDMI signal, among other things, and RGB signals. And you can use new graphics modes that this implements and things like that. So this is a very sophisticated product. Unfortunately, as I said, due to the chip shortages, this isn't going to be available. This is a beta test unit. And yeah, I have one. I'm lucky, I guess. But we're not going to see these on the market openly available soon. The only question is, does this play nicely with all the other replacement chips in there? I don't know, I haven't tried. I don't know if anybody has tried this thing with as many replacement chips as there are on this board. Let's see what we get. Oh, okay, we don't get it. It's not working correctly. Okay, there's something interfering with that. It kind of looks like a RAM fault. Maybe I'll put the other RAM chips back in there. Maybe it doesn't work. It doesn't want to work with the static RAM. Old RAM chips. Yep. Okay, so I replaced the SaRuMan with the original RAM chips. Yeah, but with the old RAM, it was the static RAM. It doesn't play nicely with the static RAM. But that's not much of an issue. I think I would rather prefer to have the Kawari in there. After all, this is like the plan, to try which components work with which stuff. So yeah, I'm going to leave the old DRAMs in there for now. And of course, the Kawari is a prototype, so it's still in development, even if it's not going to be available. I'm going to report this to Randy, because after all, I'm a beta tester, as my name suggests. So I'm going to leave it at that. I guess I'm going to leave the SaRuMan out of there for now. But other than that, this seems to work. Of course, with the original VIC-II chip, the SaRuMan worked no problem whatsoever. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to do some testing and test some games and such and demos and see if everything works as expected. But I kind of think it will work as expected, hopefully. We're going to find out. I am testing this with this configuration, and as you can see, we get some issues with GAN assistance, which is a good test for the VIC-II. Yeah, the landscape doesn't look quite right with this configuration. Yeah, and things disappear and appear randomly. Not quite sure what is causing this. I think I want to try to put in an original VIC chip again and see if that fixes our issue. I guess this is a matter of something not playing together nicely. I'm also using the 1541 Ultimate. Oh, and we get, look at that, some characters are disappearing when I scroll, so. I think that's the Kawari not playing nicely with some things here. I'm not sure what's interfering with that. Yeah, look at that, we still get stuff disappearing here. So yeah, I'm going to remove the Kawari and put the other replacement stuff in there again. So we are going to use an original VIC-II, and we are going to use the TOLB replacement timing chip and the replacement RAM as well. It was to be expected that something wouldn't quite work correctly, but the Kawari works fine in like mostly original Commodore 64s. I've tried that in a couple of models, so this is not a regular C64, to put it mildly. This has a lot of replacements in there. The Kawari is not to blame for that, I guess. Oh, we get the same stuff happening here. Okay. That is interesting. So it's not the Kawari. We get the exact same behavior. Okay. Now that's interesting. That is very interesting. What's going on? That is very strange. So something else is rotten here. Maybe we got a bad original chip in here, which is something that can happen, obviously. Okay, so I put everything back in using the original VIC-II at the moment. I removed the ARMSID SID replacement, and now we get a proper picture output, which is interesting. I'm not sure why the ARMSID would cause issues with the output of the picture. Probably it's interfering with something. But yeah, that's how it is. Now we don't have sound, obviously, because I don't have any sound chip in there. But we do have a proper picture output. Not sure what's causing the issue there. I'm going to try to put the Kawari back in, I guess. Oh, yeah. I have no idea why that happens. Yep, that looks good. That also looks good. Okay. So that works with the original RAM and the VIC-II Kawari. I'm not sure why the ARMSID is interfering. I got an original 6581 chip in there now. Yeah, we got sound back. And we got giant assistors working correctly, I think. Now it works. So I now got out another C64 with an XC PLA, put in the original VIC-II chip and the ARMSID, and I started up giant assistors again to see if this is an issue with the ARMSID in general or just in my configuration there. Oh, it's the same, okay. That's interesting. I'm pretty sure I tried this with the ARMSID before. So I downloaded the latest version of the firmware for the ARMSID, and I just want to update that, I guess. Let's see. Using the config ARMSID not found. What's happening here? Is my ARMSID broken? ARMSID not found. ARMSID not found. What's happening? So maybe my ARMSID is broken. That's not so cool after all. Yeah, and it also appears to be the same with the older version of the firmware and using my Kung Fu flash here. My ARMSID is broken. that explains it. It was a really good SID replacement, and it still outputs sound actually, but something's wonky there. I have no idea why that broke, but it did. It's not good actually. I now put a little nano swin SID in there as a replacement, as a temporary replacement. And J Sisters works. So yeah, that's that. Would have loved to have the ARMSID in there, but it broke for some reason. I'm not quite sure. I have another version of the ARMSID, which is the stereo version, so I'm going to probably put that in at some point. For now, I think this is going to have to do. So another thing that I realized, I can just remove the TOLB timing chip because the VIC-II Kawari just does all the timings on board, so we don't need a timer chip at all. So I neither have the 8701 or the TOLB in there at the moment, and I still get a picture. Magic! I think I want to put an original SID chip in there in the meantime, because I like that way better than the nano swin SID, which is just, yeah, it's a replacement, but it's not as good as an original SID chip or the ARMSID. But unfortunately that broke. I think I have one spare somewhere, and that should give me a working C64 again. Yeah, so this does work with this configuration. So we still didn't get very far because the Kawari doesn't work with the SaRuMan RAM replacement. For some reason, I'm going to report that to Randy. Maybe there's a workaround for that in the future. New PLA, original SID chip, and otherwise this remains unchanged. I removed the timing chip altogether. That's not necessary for the Kawari. We could obviously use an original VIC-II and use the static RAM replacement, which is an option. I'm not sure if I want that or rather have the Kawari in there. Just experimenting here, as you probably know. This whole project is about replacement chips and trying how they work with each other and how they interfere. So yeah, this configuration seems to work fine. Also, original VIC-II chip, TOLB timing chip, static RAM chips work fine. And we can use a SID replacement, just not a broken one. I need to put some heat sinks on, at least on the SID, because I don't want to risk ruining that. I'm going to do that, I guess, and then close this thing up. Or maybe put an original VIC-II chip in there and the timing chip replacement. Probably that's what I'm going to end up doing. Just wanted to try the Kawari in this configuration. And it does work with some caveats. Namely, you can't use the static RAM replacement with that. Decisions. Okay, so I made the decision of removing the Kawari and putting the original VIC-II back in here and the TOLB timing chip replacement, because I like that. And I'm also going to use the static RAM replacement because that's more chips. It's all about counting more chips, isn't it? Okay, so here's the final configuration for now that I'm going to leave this in. TOLB replacement for the timing chip, original VIC-II chip. This is the PLAnkton EV, actually, which has better output levels than the original PLAnkton, so it's even more compatible than the original one. And the SaRuMan-64 static RAM replacement. I'm using an original SID because my ARMSID broke for some reason, I'm not sure why. I am going to replace that with another ARMSID, I think, at some point. And I'm going to add some heat sinks on the VIC-II and on the SID chip now, I think, because that is very much recommended because these chips run hot. So I'm just going to clean the chips with some IPA and then put some heatsink plaster on there and some nice heat sinks. Just trying to get these as straight as possible. Yeah, and we're just going to leave this for a while so the glue can settle. That's what I want to do to the innards of this machine. We are going to take a look at the case as well in a second. Or in a second for you. I'm just going to let this sit for an hour or two to let the glue settle. So this is the glue I used, heatsink plaster, it says. I just found this on eBay and it's super cheap stuff, came from China, like most things these days. But yeah, this has worked for me very well in the past and I hope it works this time. So I went on and tested this for a while and I think the glue has settled now. Everything seems to work fine. No issues whatsoever in this configuration that I've shown you. So let's close the case. Literally. I'm not going to put any screws into the keyboard because it holds in there quite nicely. And this is a machine that is going to be worked on frequently. As soon as there's new replacement chips, I want to try them. I'm just going to put some screws in here. This is the first time that there are screws in this case. From this side, I didn't close it up last time, so we can just dig some new threads here. As for the rubber feet, I am not going to use the white ones that were provided with the case. I have something better. I'm going to use these clear ones because they match the case quite nicely, I think. These are just 3M Bumpon SJ5312. 12.7 by 3.5 millimeter. And I think these are a way better match for the clear case, for obvious reasons. So yeah, this is now a finished Commodore 64 clone, Sixtyclone. I'm also still waiting for the replacement keycaps that I ordered. There are some in the making, as you probably know if you're following the Commodore 64 scene. Any day now, they should go into production and then probably some days or weeks after that I'm going to have them and I'm going to, of course, show them in a video whenever they arrive. Yeah, so I think that's it for this video. I learned some new things. Hope you learned some new things too. One of the things I learned was that the Kawari doesn't play nicely with the SaRuMan SRAM replacement. Also, my ARMSID is broken. I guessed it would work normally in this configuration. I'm using a regular original SID for now. I like the SID. And I'm using the VIC-II, the original one, in this setup now. But the Kawari should work without the SaRuMan and without the TOLB replacement. So yeah, you saw me using some options here. This is what I settled for now. Of course, this is a project that's going to be revisited from time to time whenever there's new replacement parts available. I'm timing out here. Thank you for your support on Patreon and the channel memberships page and on Ko-fi and on PayPal and elsewhere. Also, especially thanks to Eslapion, who donated some of the replacement chips that you saw me using today. And to Randy Rossi, who makes the Kawari and who let me be a beta tester of that device, which is amazing. And hopefully see you again sometime on this channel. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.